Um, so Raj, let me know if is this, do you need to kick off any PTA official business meeting type stuff before I jump in, or?
Sure. So the first thing is welcome, Peter. Thank you for your time. And I think this is going to be our last coffee with the principal for this calendar year. And we are looking for more exciting sessions next year. So thank you, Mr. Tubb, again, for your assistance in preparing all these coffee with principal events. So I think we can jump into the presentation. We will have some PTA business at end of it. We have a 2021-22 budget proposal that we would like to present to this group. So as far as our main topic for this afternoon, let's get started. So welcome, Peter.
Excellent. Thank you, Raj, for having me here today. Thank you, Guy, for the invitation. Extremely excited to be here with parents and talking about such an important topic. And really, first and foremost, thank you for engaging in this discussion. I think more than anything, your role is pivotal to this working, and the fact that you're willing to have this dialogue and engage in trying to help our students develop some really important skills, and I can't find the right word for that right now, but that as they grow and as they're maturing, that they really tend to their online and digital footprints in a responsible and ethical way. And I think your role in that is so important that I just really wanted to make sure I took some time to say thank you, and because we can't do this without you. So without further...
Thank you as well, Peter, and I'll just formally introduce you now that I think we have most of our participants on. This is Peter James. He is our district's Assistant Director of Technology, and what's really great about Peter is he's kind of he gets every perspective. He's a dad, he was a teacher, he was like a curriculum supervisor in math and in science. He's been an assistant principal at the high school level, at the middle school level, and now he's serving at the district level, supporting all of our efforts with technology. So you're hearing really good information, really important information, and you're hearing it from an extremely credible source. Like I said, kind of coming at it from every angle. So without further ado, here's Mr. James, and we thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Tolt. Sorry for diving right in if I jumped the line.
I don't know. No, I was waiting anyway because I knew we had folks still joining, so we figured to make sure everybody can hear.
Perfect. So again, I'll repost the link in the chat in case you wanted to follow along on documents there or refer to it later. But these were the slides we were going to work through. And then if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. So at this point, back up. Thank you. It's been a while since I've done a full-blown Zoom presentation. I'm feeling out of practice, but hopefully everybody can see the screen. A little thumbs up, maybe. Cool, great. So again, this is I think extremely important work, and probably a good moment to just frame out before we get started.
It's time for lunch.
Probably a good time to frame out before we start a little bit of just the idea. The challenge here is one that our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents all faced as well. That we're trying to help our children become responsible, ethical, and intelligent decision makers. And we're really trying to, this is going to get back to kind of helping them develop their morals and guide them through their adolescence, which is the time where they're testing those. They're trying to really build their own character. They're really trying to push the boundaries, push the limits, and really find out who they are. The difference being, we are doing this in an age where they have access and opportunities to find all kinds of conflicting information, misinformation. Thinking about it, again, I'll try to, throughout this presentation, tie links back to, kind of previous eras of parenting and what that might look like or what that might feel like today. It just seems to be kind of a little bit of what we're talking about. And while we're doing this, I'm also going to try to give a little bit of what's out there now, what's currently are some of the softwares and or technologies that are providing this access and opportunity for our students, but also or children, but are also, forcing them to make some decisions in real time or at a faster pace than we had to. And then I'll also talk about options that you have and things to do next. So digging in, it's about what are the realities out there, what's available, what are the concerns, and to try to kind of lead into that. And then really what are the district safeguards and what are the things that we can do as a community working together to do that. And to help our students and to help our children make decisions as they're establishing their digital and real identities. I think those are the important parts to this. So I'm just going to throw some statistics out there just so that we know kind of the online platforms that are, worldwide data usage and what we're seeing. Again, Facebook and YouTube, probably ones you're familiar with and common. And as you can see by the number of users million worldwide, with looking at upwards of 3 billion on Facebook and upwards of 2.5 billion on YouTube, we're running with those are the common ones. But then you start to break down and you start to look at all of these other social media applications that have been introduced into the technologies. And the reason that really we're going to focus in on the social media aspect of this is that that's the one that's evolving, right? I don't think we're concerned with
like just a webinar.
necessarily choosing between having specific software that we vetted, that we've purchased and standalone on our devices. But it's really the applications that then avail themselves to students and children interacting and becoming social. And I think it's important to also notice that while we're listing specific, and I keep pointing to my left, I apologize, that's where my screen is with everything on it. As we list out all of the different like standalone products, we've also got to remember that every video game, every Google Classroom, every has some form of chat ability, has some form of social media access connected to it, which is why teaching you about all of these doesn't help us, right? We just kind of need to be comfortable in that world that our children have access and opportunity to speak to and collect information from a variety of sources. And the only way that we're really going to know about those things is going to end up being by talking to our children and talking to our kids and seeing what they're into and what's going on. Just to kind of break down a little bit of what's out there further. And I thought this was an interesting piece of information around the age ranges of usage. So for example, when you look at something at the bottom of this list, like Facebook, that we all know about, that we're all pretty comfortable with, that we've seen, notice that the age range is pretty tight. The dark blue representing the 18 to 29 category, the light blue being 30 to 49, and then working its way up as you go green. But then you look at something like Snapchat, which every building administrator can tell you wonderful stories about Snapchat and how things appear and disappear very quickly, and how nobody knows where it came from, but everybody saw it. And that seems to be, when you look here, a platform that is used very much by our children, but not so much the older that you get when you start to look through, which gives that kind of big difference in the wide range within the age group usage. Statistics aren't really collected on the age group that we're speaking about here of our 8 to or 7 to 18-year-olds, but that's because they're just not collected in the Pew Research data or whatnot because they're minors, so you generally don't do that. Again, some popular ones that you've seen and I'm sure you've heard about: TikTok, making a lot of news lately, creating a lot of concern across the nation. But also on the flip side of that, there was also a lot of individuals trying to push positive movements there of how could we get gratitude challenges as opposed to the ones that are currently running through our news media cycles. Again, this is a thing where these are platforms, but really what it's going to come down to is how are we engaging our children, engaging our students with what do they know about keeping their private details private when they're online? What are they thinking about their digital footprint and the fact that when they search something, select something, go to a link, watch a video, that's being tracked somewhere. Somebody is collecting that information, as simple as that could be of an advertiser, or as threatening as it could be as somebody trying to build a dossier on individuals. So why it's important to be knowledgeable about that. Again, kind of speaking to some of the concerns that I think we all face, of what is trolling. I think it has some very innocent kind of beginnings of following somebody on a chat and kind of mocking or needling or poking fun, but it grows very offensive and very difficult to deal with very quickly. And as I mentioned before, I want to kind of tie some of these things back to what they were before. You can almost think of a circle of friends out on a playground, and that somebody might say something and 2 or 3 friends might mock them or be well, that was dumb. But now when you do this online, it turns into 100 messages that follow, and that situation of the friends on the playground, they disperse, they go home. Well, now when you do that in chat rooms and you do that this way, it's always on. They're never away from it. And even if they put it down while they have dinner and they're talking to you and engaging in family events, they go back to it and it's still there. It didn't go away. The cyberbullying, again, those are all pieces that are what we're watching and what we're understanding. The more as we look at the psychology of our adolescents and our young people, and we've always been concerned about bullies. There's been stories throughout history about what bullies do and how to stand up to a bully and all of those things. This does put a different spin on it, in that there's no escape. You meet the bully on the playground, you went home. You meet the bully on Snapchat, on Twitter, on any of the WeChats. They're not going away. They're always there. There's always access to it. And even if you put it down for a week, at some point, it's still part of our society, part of our culture. So I know I'm painting a pretty depressing picture here. And I want to try to get away from that a little bit, because you guys can read through this stuff, but I think it's important to see at the bottom of this list, the self-esteem, the body image, the sleep patterns, the social skills. Those are all things that, again, we've been talking with pediatricians about what happens if we're noticing changes in any of those for a long time. This doesn't change because of social media. I think we need to be more attuned to it, because these are going to be the signals. These are going to be the symbols to recognize that our sons and daughters are struggling through something, that there's an event going on, that that they're trying to establish their independence, so they're not telling us the full story, but their actions will, their sleep will, the way they dress, if there's changes in that will, the way they're eating will tell us that there's something going on. And so as we notice those changes, as we engage them in conversations about how they're doing and what's going on and who they're hanging out with, those are all little windows and little opportunities into what's going on. And it may be that we have to push further onto, well, you said you got a pretty rough text from Mr. Toll. Can you share that with me? Can you show that to me? I think those are important parts of the conversation of building that relationship with them to start working through that. There was a question I think that was asked prior to our meeting of, how do I help my 5th grader, introduce them to social media? I think what I want to share is, by all the things that we just talked about, keep talking to them, keep having that conversation with them about what's going on, how do we treat people, how do we talk to others, because just as we want to be kind in person, we want to be kind online. When we notice things that are not appropriate in person, we want to report them. When we notice things that are not appropriate online, the same thing goes. And I think it's important for us to always also remember that really sorry for that on the screen, the idea that they haven't seen any of this stuff, I think we've got to be careful with that one, recognizing that when they've gone over to a friend's house or they've just been playing on, say, the Nintendo Switch or the Wii, or they're at their cousin's, that there's been some exposure at some point to social media. And I think it's always important to have in the back of our mind that even though we don't have a direct line to it, know that it's out there and it can be accessed, I think is important. So kind of pulling back to the concerns again, these are more of the symptoms and signs to look for. Notice they're no different than any other of the symptoms or signs that something has changed or something isn't right in the world of our young ones. You know, it's important for us to be paying attention to those. What we've been seeing with recent events across the nation and in the media is that it's when the friends or when the peer group or the parents that are involved and engaged in having the conversation with their children and their peers see these things and report them, that we can respond appropriately and make sure that they get the supports they need. I would always say, if you're seeing changes in your children, in their behaviors, in their habits, please use your network of support, whether that's your pediatrician, whether that's calling the school guidance counselor, whether that's reaching out to your neighbors who you've been friends with and your kids are growing up and they know the backstory as well. Whatever that support group is that you've built, I encourage you to use it. And if you don't have one, I really encourage calling the school counselor, because they'll help you guide through the program of what you could do or where you could go. Because really this is about just kind of working with our children, working with who they are, helping them develop. And we're here to work with you on that. And we're here to be a partner in those things. So again, a lot of that stuff, as far as I tried to do a little balance there of the painting the picture of the realities of the challenges that we're facing when it comes down to the social aspect of this, because once you're online, you are open to everything that is online. But with that, I know, especially speaking to the group, it's one of the big reasons I work in this community is because I count on this community to be working hard to support our kids, to be there for them and to engage them in developing really positive morals, ethics, and making good decisions about who they are and what they do. And it's been wonderful to work with this community in that. And again, kind of back to the beginning of thank you for being here to engage in this. Going to jump into some of the district safeguards now. Please feel free to type questions in the chat. I will try to respond through the presentation, and it's tough when you just hear yourself talk. So by all means, feel free to raise a hand or chime in the chat. I'm happy to kind of respond throughout. So speaking to the district safeguards, please know we do use a Google domain. It's a Google workspace. What that means is that in the district, we have administrators on that workspace that can access accounts and kind of follow what students are doing and where they're going. And it also means that we can control things that happen within or outside of our WWPRSD network. So email and document sharing, when you're speaking about kindergarten through 8th grade, that is only within the WWP domain. Now, I know that can sometimes cause problems as a parent. My kid, is on his school domain. I ask him to share a document with me so that we can just talk about it, and he can't because I'm not in that domain, but that's there for his protection. So again, it goes back to this. Please know that that's part of what's done from the district side to make sure that they're not getting information, email or Google Docs outside. So yes, I see in the chat that there's a son who can't email his parent or can't share the Google Doc, and that's because that goes kindergarten through 8th grade, that it's within the network only. Is able to. So I will have to review those settings because that was not my understanding based on where we were with email. But I'm curious if he's getting that. I'm gonna have to look into that. Thank you. Thank you for reporting. And then the 9th through 12th grade is unrestricted. I'm wondering if I did get some old information because the pandemic may have shifted some of that so that we could make it easier for students to share things with their parents. So I apologize if I'm off. There are safe search options, specifically anything that's done while on the school network is going to be filtered. That's a state law requirement of filtering, but even if it wasn't, we would have items there and in place to try to secure the search. The Chromebook logins are really to be done with the WWPRSD accounts only, which provides archiving, and then the nightly shutdowns, which is done through our GoGuardian setup, and really that actually restricts the nightly use of the device. Really, and again, I think it's worth speaking about it. It's because I've heard both sides of this. It's not to frustrate parents or students with, oh, but I have this assignment to do and I can't do it because they're shutting down my computer. It's really to get them to take the time and shut down and get a good night's sleep and really step away from work. Please, speaking as a former middle school assistant principal, if a student's running up against a deadline and can't get it done, start that conversation with the teacher. Shoot an email over to say, hey, I'm sorry, we couldn't get there tonight. Lots of stuff going on. Have that conversation. That's always going to be more fruitful than either A, just not showing up with it, or B, trying to find a way around a computer shutdown. So please, those are things that we want to work with you on, and it comes back to the communication. And then lastly, the piece we put up there as a safeguard is the use of the Google Classroom. Again, it keeps us within that Google network. It makes sure that we're communicating and using the functionalities of it. Relatively regularly, we're getting requests in the tech department for the latest and greatest communication system that's kind of outside. For example, the most recent one of Slack. I know there's a lot of companies and corporations using Slack. Many of you may be slacking back and forth with your companies. We are staying with Google just because of the security features it provides us, just because of the connections it does limit to certain discussion boards and things that we want to make sure we're maintaining. So that's part of the security features here. The two monitoring systems that we used, I did mention GoGuardian. That kind of controls the Google accounts and the access. It also provides our staff members screen monitoring access within the classroom and whenever students are online in their class. And I know that there are parent controls to the GoGuardian that are available, I believe, in the off hours. So if there's any questions or concerns on those things or their usage, please don't hesitate to email us. I'm not well versed in it because I didn't actually have to use that end of it as an assistant principal or not, and it came after my teaching time. But it is something that we do have team members that can support and help figure out what you need. And then Gaggle is our monitoring system. Now this I'm much more versed in because this was the notification system that anything that's stored or shared with your child in their school accounts. So any school accounts runs through this Gaggle system where if there are alarming phrases or words or inappropriate pictures or items, any of that stuff goes through, it will typically be flagged by Gaggle. And then it's a matter of the administrator working with the teacher and the student and then the parent really to sort out exactly, depending on the level of concern, what the next steps are there. And it reviews everything from, spamming of students going into their Google chat and just putting a question mark about 300 times and sending that to their friend will get gaggled, all the way to very concerning material, shared, which prompts, further supports and reaching out throughout. But know that any school account is reviewed by that system.
Just can I interject about Gaggle there?
Please.
I'm going to just go back to that slide. It's just an important point that we do tell the kids about Gaggle, but like a lot of things that they hear at the beginning of the year, they don't necessarily remember every single thing we say. But it's sort of this 24/7 all the time monitoring. And if the kids are logged into their Google account from school, regardless of what device they're on or anything like that, but if they're in their accounts, that's what's being monitored. And it's a pretty cool system. It's basically works on a lot of kind of keywords and things like that. So oftentimes kids will, especially at this level, at the elementary level, will get like a Gaggle alert because a student in either a Google Doc, an email, a slide presentation, a chat, anything that's that's connected to their Google account, maybe they reference a word like that is within the vocabulary of fighting or violence or, concern for safety. Those kinds of things are what get flagged, and it sends an alert to, the school administrators as well as people like Mr. James here from the district level. And we always check in. So this is a nice opportunity just to share that with all of you, that, you might get a call from us, after hours, say 7 o'clock at night or over a weekend or something, where we say, hey, we just got an alert, your son or your daughter, it appears, just wrote this or was just visiting this website or what have you. Just know that we're, that's all in partnership with you to kind of help keep everybody safe and appropriate and all of that. The funny thing is the kids often don't realize it, even though we tell them, wait, what do you mean you knew about that? Or what do you mean you heard about my email or my Google Doc, So it's just a good reminder for them that we're always monitoring for their safety and for their appropriate use. It does do a really good job. At the same time, there are things that get a gaggle alert that probably don't warrant it. So for a really good common example at this level is kids will be writing a reflection on like a book they're reading, and they mention all sorts of things that happen to this character. And it's really just an assignment for class, but the system doesn't know that. So we'll check on that. And if that's clearly what it is, then we don't really follow up with it. But if it's anything that we think is legitimate, if it's during the school day, we'll call the student down and talk to them about it, get them any help if they need help with it, or sort of remind them of online etiquette if that's what it requires. And if it's after hours, we'll usually call home to touch base with you to let you know. So it is a good system, and it's helped us a lot with making sure our kids are doing okay and safe. And the Go Guardian piece, I think, like Mr. James explained, that's essentially gives teachers and school staff the ability to kind of see what the kids are seeing in real time and kind of access their screen in the moment. Sometimes different kids react to that in different ways, and they can't believe that we would have the audacity to do such a thing. But again, it's just like the same as our responsibility to monitor them when they're in the hallway or when they're in the cafeteria or when they're in the gym. It's our job to monitor and keep safety. So different teachers use the settings in different ways and can often kind of control things so that if you're in, a certain class, you're only able to open up so many different tabs, or you're only able to go to Google Classroom versus the entire internet and things like that. So that's a nice tool as well. And it helps us keep the kids focused and keep them on task and keep them safe, quite honestly.
And a perfect segue into, I think later in this presentation, as we start to talk about really what are the monitoring options that you have, and that we have as a group. These are the things that school is using, and specifically in the district that we're using to monitor, but you have those options as well. And again, it's going to go back to building that relationship of trust with your child. I know that I'm working on a lot of this now with my own child. He's 8, and trying to navigate kind of making a responsible decision, and doing those things. And there's going to be times where I'm going to put systems in place that ensure that I can check all of those things, because he is going to be growing up and he is going to be pushing boundaries harder than an 8-year-old does. And we're going to have to kind of work through that as we do. There's a question in the chat that came up of considering friends play online games. I don't want to shut my kids away from online games, but how much should I allow them time with their device and that sort of thing? I think a couple points. Great question. Thank you, because it lets me talk about something you want to hear about, as opposed to me droning on about other stuff. But so this one's a very personal decision, as far as how much time is too much time on a screen. I'm still going to offer that's really going to come back to the family and knowing your child and having the conversations with your child. And, is the online game, is that their outlet for connecting socially with their peers? Is that where they've gone? Because society's changed. I was commenting to my wife the other day that our son doesn't scheme with his friends to have the play date to get over to their house anymore. And I don't know if that's because of pandemic that third graders just don't do that. But I always remember as a kid, like we'd spring it on our parents in front of them so that they couldn't say no. And he doesn't do that. And it seems like it's because a lot of it has shifted to online. With that, and knowing that sometimes he'll connect with his cousins and sometimes he'll connect with his friends around the corner, and that he's doing a lot of that, he's 8 and I've probably extended the time more than I really wanted to. But it's because that's how the communication has gone. And like you said, we want them to be social. We want them to do those things. I think it comes back to, can they show you they're being responsible? Can they show you they're making good decisions? Are they really playing with their friends, or are they just kind of doing things they shouldn't be doing? And those, the only way to know that, and the only way to know what's right for your child, is to have the conversations with them and talk to them. I think the other important piece to realize and remember there is all of these accounts and all of these devices and everything that's there, while we may call it that, that's our child's device. My son is Matthew, so yeah, that's Matthew's iPad because that's the one that he uses, and that's what we've purchased it for. It's my device. Like at the end of the day, I will put the time restrictions on that device. I will put any filtering or blocking software on that device, or I will just flat out take that device away if he can't control and make good decisions. We had a recent discussion in the house about the device in the morning, that before school, it's not to be used. That's easy with an 8-year-old. That gets harder with a 12-year-old. I totally get it. I'm not looking forward to it, but those are the things that, we've got to navigate and definitely leverage together. But I think it's important to keep in mind, they are our devices. The hardest conversation I had with a parent when the child got a little bit older was just that, that they couldn't, they literally, the child couldn't make the connection that it wasn't their phone, that it wasn't their device, and couldn't separate from it. And the parents were coming to me, pulling their hair out. How do I get them off the phone? And I finally had to look and say, take it away. It's your phone. It's not her phone. And that's hard. And I know that that's hard to hear, but it's sometimes that is the key to this whole thing. So to go back to how much time is too much time, that's kind of up to you between the doc, if they're having physical problems because they're not going to the bathroom because they want to stay on their device, you got a bigger issue.
But
if it's
just add, from my experience working at the middle school level as well as here at Village, I think most families, you do a great job limiting screen time and keeping kids occupied. But one thing we don't always account for is how good they get at finding their own screen time when you're not around. And, and that's not all kids, but, if you're starting to notice some problems, oftentimes it might be related to that. So for example, a kind of a concrete strategy we've encouraged families to do is when they charge their Chromebook at night, that they do it, it stays plugged in like in your room or in the kitchen or somewhere, not their bedroom, because sometimes the allure of the internet is too much to resist when they might wake up at 11 o'clock at night and see it. And the next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. and they've been on YouTube the whole time. It's just not good for them. So, a concrete thing is to have sort of a public place where they charge stuff as opposed to in their own rooms.
And again, this is one where any idea you have is a good idea. Try it. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, try something else. I'll speak personally, we did go to his iPad charges downstairs. No devices go into his bedroom. It's just where we're at right now. How that evolves later, I don't know. But that's where we're at now. And please, I know I'll speak a lot about my son with this. The interesting part, he is the spitting image of his uncle, my brother-in-law, who is a computer programmer, has like 4 monitors going, is plugged in 24/7. So we're trying to balance his interests in being, just like Uncle Drew, with being, a well-rounded young man. So we're working on all that. Again, kind of safeguards. Please know that with your child's computer network at school, with their accounts at school, we are the ones who set their email address. We are the ones who set their password, and you have access to all of it. So if you ever wanted to go in, if you log into the parent portal of Genesis, bring up the student demographic information, I believe you can access right away. And if somebody knows exactly which screen this is, please let me know, because I don't ever see it from the parent side, but it'll have their network password and their student Google account right on it for you to access. We do not email passwords. We do not email those home, but we will refresh, or if you're concerned that it's been stolen, or a student, somebody else has come into possession of your child's password, we will update, and then we'll just let you know that it's been updated in Genesis and they can find it there. But that's kind of how, if you want to take a peek at what's in your child's Google Drive, you have the access. Whether you should or not goes back to a conversation and the trust and the relationship that you're building with your child. And that's really one where I'd encourage, have the conversation with them, talk to them. If there's a reason that you're concerned that you need to go there, the conversation is the important part to that, and really kind of sorting through where that goes. Next part, YouTube piece. I know that there's been a lot of requests over the years. I say a lot. There have not. There have been a few requests over the years to kind of, can we block YouTube? My child will not leave YouTube. They are stuck on it. I know. And we will work with you to try to help set limits to figure that out and navigate it. But while there's a lot of junk on YouTube, there's also a lot of really good educational stuff on YouTube. And we do use it heavily across the district to provide content to our students that's been vetted and is valuable and is important to the learning process. And unfortunately, we are not able to necessarily limit it with a widespread ban. That said, the level of access to it is limited by the grade. It is something that we do manage through the the GoGuardian scenes, where an individual teacher, again, as they're monitoring in real time, they can actually set up a browser scene so that they know where their students are and kind of control the links to where they're headed. And then incognito mode for students is disabled, so that their browsing history is available and is able to be accessed by the Google admins within the accounts. Just reviewing real quick in the chat, I saw a question come up. What about mobile phone usage?
With those as well. As far as mobile phone usage in school at our level, at the elementary level, we ask kids if anybody has a phone, they're to keep it off and in their bag during the day. They don't need it at any point during the day. We have a phone in the office should they ever need to call home. They've been using it for 25 years. It works just fine. Elementary is a little different because we have a little more structure and control over where the kids are. As far as like free and unstructured time, it's not as, there's not as much of that as there are at the upper levels. At our age, like I said, at our school, we ask them to have it off and in their bag. And if we see it, which it's really not an issue here, but if we were to see a student with a phone, we would just remind them, hey, that goes in your bag, and they're fine with it. Sometimes in the bus, kids that have a phone might bring it out, and we always remind them that should be away because that's when it gets broken or lost. Not everyone's not everyone has access to what the phone can give you access to. So we just ask that kids put those away. Most of the time, if a child has one at this level, it's the family's giving it to them for emergency situations, and that's their prerogative, but there's really no need for it to be out. And we try to encourage kids to keep them in their bag. As far as an age to give it to them, I mean, my daughter's still a baby. I'm going to hold out as long as I can. And I always joke that if my wife and I ever have a big fight, it's going to be because of the phone, because she probably will want her to have one sooner than I will. But honestly, they don't need one at this level at all. And the thing with the phone is it's not just about texting friends and staying connected to friends. A cell phone today means full and unfettered access to everything, just because the tools have changed doesn't mean the rules did. So things that were inappropriate for kids when we were growing up are still inappropriate for kids, even though they're a lot easier to access. So that's the thing to keep in mind. And it's really about when you feel comfortable with your child having access to the things that they can access through a phone. But as far as need, there definitely is not a need for it at this level when they're at school. At the older levels, they do have some freedom with that. Peter can probably talk to that.
Well, again, I mean, it just becomes more prevalent. And especially when you throw the sports, athletics, late bus, clubs, activities, and there's things going on after school and you want to be able to get in touch with them, I understand that the need for it increases. I will say the main offices are always available. To make a phone call home from school is always an option, and getting out of the main office to make that call is always there. So what age is the right age? Again, that's going to be a family decision as to what's appropriate. I think it goes back to, has your child shown the responsibility to have a device such as that? Are they doing the things that they need to? Are they making the appropriate decisions to do that? And the best person to know that is going to be you. I would also encourage, there are not old school payphones at the middle school or the high school. Good question. I think there's actually one that is in the high school by the Aux Gym at High School North. It does not work. But what they can do is there are office phones, even from the gym. They could get you into a gym office if there was a coach or somebody there that would be able to make the call. they can always make a call from school to get home. There is access. But to go back to kind of what age, again, it's have they shown that they're responsible and making the ethical and the correct moral decisions to have a phone and use it appropriately. And the other part to that, I think it is important to lead into that conversation with, while they would be in control of the phone and able to make decisions about who they're calling or who they're texting, that it is your phone and you might need to monitor it, and you might put software on it that'll monitor it, or you might, put location information on there so that you can track where they are. That those are all things that are in your purview. And I understand that becomes a delicate conversation as you're trying to maintain trust and build the appropriate relationships with your children. But those are things that I've already started those conversations that, yeah, there's location services on his iPad. Now he's never out of the house with the iPad without me, but I'm foreseeing that very soon, now that he's able to ride his bike through the neighborhood to his friend's house, that this is coming, this is around the corner. And for you guys, it might be right there already, where it's just a matter. Thank you, Guy. I will try to make sure I hit the salient points and get there quickly. But I do love these questions and kind of digging into them, because these are all things that we want to be sure we're working through. Again, I also want to stress that you're going to make decisions, we're going to make decisions, we're going to try things, and sometimes they're going to work out great, and sometimes they might not work so well. And we'll know that by talking to our children, by talking to our students, by keeping those conversations going, by paying attention to their sleeping habits and their friends. I keep coming back to that, but that really is, those are our windows into, is this working? Is this going well, or is it not? And so, with all of these, that's where and I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat. Yes, that's where we're gonna be able to monitor this old school by talking to our children, by watching our children, by seeing their habits and what's going on. And they're gonna know way more than us about what the trends on social media are and how to access this or how to get around the device that you set up. So again, there's parts to that they're gonna know a lot more, and they're gonna have access just by using their friend's device, or they're gonna get around it. So it's really going to come back to those conversations about what the expectations are for their use of the devices, having that relationship built, and over time layering in, making good decisions, being responsible, ensuring that you're not oversharing things online and all of that stuff. So actually that kind of covers this slide of the, we're in this together. Please, as we're talking with our children, as you're talking with your children, as we kind of come together on that as a school community, speaking about our children being our students and your children, that's the same group, that really we are working together. And the more that we model appropriate behaviors, the better off we all are. And the more we are open and transparent about the expectations and the kind of ways that we will be checking, the better off we are. This is going to pull us back a little bit to this is going to pull us back to a best practice of just kind of before posting online and talking about engaging our children in the conversation about what they're doing on social media, is the THINK acronym. That before you post something, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This would solve, I can't tell you how many harassment, intimidation, and bullying situations that we've covered of if students would think through this before they posted, we'd be there. Great question about Grammarly. I'm not sure of the specifics on what's there or not. I will look into that and make sure that Mr. Tolp has some information regarding what the current install of that is on devices. But yes, I do think that the predictive nature of Google and Grammarly and all of those things are going to change the way we write. It took me long enough to get away from 2 spaces after a period to 1, but it is cool. So that's going to definitely be changed, and we'll definitely keep an eye on it. Here's a couple links. They're available here. You guys, I have the slides so you can use them if you need. Really for safe searches, looking for information out there that's available and already been vetted with regards to kind of pre-vetted for kid approaches. and honestly, I haven't even dug into the LifeWire one that much. I can just do a real quick check. Tech for Humans. I apologize that I did not dig into this one. This was provided to me by some of our staff, and looks like just the family tech is probably what they were getting at, with things worth looking at for how to use the parent controls in Fortnite. Probably an article I should read. The parent controls on the Switch, Google Home intercoms. So just kind of a nice one-stop shop for information about technology that's out there and things that are going on. Parent controls, again, these are all things to look for that you can set up within your home networks. I know I've been limiting my child at the router level. I go into our home router and set things up there to manage and monitor. But again, there's a variety of ways to do this and to start digging through. One of the big things to remember whenever you're looking at security on networks and devices, there is going to be a speed of device working versus security balance that you have to strike. So just be mindful of where you put the securities and how much it may slow down the device, because if it gets to the point where, if the parent controls on Fortnite are such that your child can no longer go on a raid with his friends, you'll have to have that conversation about what the appropriateness is, or what he could or she could do to show you that, maybe they can earn not having those controls on there so that the game will run smoother. Couple links here that are well worth going to. It's all the options from Verizon and Xfinity or Comcast. These were just two main providers that we wanted to make sure we shared what the links are, where the access is to setting up parent controls there. And I'm sorry for speeding through. I know we're up against the time, and that's my fault for going too slow at the beginning. But again, cell phones, all of these items, location tracking was a big one that I know that I've seen parents use very effectively in the past for certain situations. The password protection is big. And really just the remembering that while they are using that cell phone, it's the family's device, it's your device. It's something that they can earn the privileges of using, but at the same time, I very much encourage you to make sure you're managing and working with that. One of our parents here just said how wonderful the FiOS parent controls are, and big fan of them. So just throwing that out from the chat. Couple different cell phone monitoring apps and the computer monitoring apps. Again, there's a variety of items out there for home use. It depends on how technical you want to be, at what level you want to monitor at. There's pros and cons to everything of being on the device. Apple offers a lot of options for controlling and shutting down and locking and limiting time. Your home router probably offers a lot. Your internet provider offers some, as we've just mentioned. And now, again, you can look into all of these others. Really, I want to take just kind of, I guess, the last few minutes to just, again, say thank you to everyone for being here. Some of these pieces here are what we're aiming for is appropriate, ethical, moral behavior from our children. We want to encourage that. We want to model that. We want to do those things and have the conversations with them so that they know that their actions, both in person and online, have impact, and that they can have a positive impact or they can have a negative impact, and that choice is theirs. So here's my contact information. Please, I'm open to questions, as I hope I demonstrated on this, and really just enjoyed the time here with you guys today, and hope that you please feel free to email, contact. Love working with our parents, love working with our community, and thinking through things as we go. So any final questions, please drop them in the chat, shoot me an email, happy to answer. So thank you again.
Great. Thank you so much, Peter. This was a wonderful presentation. And what we'll also do is, as part of our PTA newsletter, we'll make sure we share the link to this presentation as well. So And then we'll also post the video online so that parents who were not able to join us today can see it on YouTube if it's not blocked.
Excellent.
So I have a few PTA business. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to try and make sure it stays within the time limit. So give me a few seconds, guys. Let me know if you guys are able to see. It's a slide that I'm presenting. Yeah. All right, perfect. All right, great. So this is our, as I mentioned, probably our last Coffee with the Principal meeting for this calendar year. And this was the agenda we are going through today. Just a couple of things from PTA. This is 125th year for the National PTA, so it's a great milestone coming up. So far, we have 123 members who have joined, and we are thankful to them. We're thankful to all the volunteers who have contributed immensely to some of the activities that we carried on this part of the school year. Some of the accomplishments, we had a nice back to school breakfast for our teachers and staff when the school was in person this year. We were able to raise some funds through our WWP Strong t-shirts. The new t-shirts and hoodies have just been distributed this week. So you would see them coming to your class and from the class to the kids. They all should have received it this week. If you haven't received it or if you have any issues, please contact us and we'll work to fix that issues. We had a great in-person scholastic book fair. And I think the volunteers did a great job setting it up and being there all the 5 days. And it was amazing to see kids so excited for this event. So thank you so much for everyone who supported our book fair this year. And finally, we have the reflection program that has come to end with all the entries. And we have some amazing entries that students have submitted. We are currently reviewing those entries and judging them. Once we identify the entries that will pass on to the next level, which is the Mercer County level, we will notify all the parents the students that have been selected to move to the Mercer County level. Important reminders, make sure you read the Friday newsletters, very important newsletters. It has news around PTA, news from the school and news from the district. So I would highly encourage that you get into the habit of reading these Friday afternoon newsletters. Our Amazon Smile program is active. You'll see information in the newsletter for this Friday. It's very easy. You just set it up once, and then every purchase that you do, if it's eligible, Amazon donates a small amount to Village PTA. We have a link for becoming a member. So if you have any friends and families who would like to become a member, please share this link with them. And the next part is our financial budget that we have prepared for 2021-22. And I have sent a link to this budget in this morning's email to everyone. So you should have a link to this budget. You can take your time to look at it. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. So for this 2021-22 school year, we are expecting a revenue of 5,790, and we are expecting expenses around 5,625. Now, this is just for this school year, and we will monitor this as we go through all the different activities that happen during the school year. And oops. That's it. Again, thank you so much for attending this event. You can reach us through villagepta.org. We are also on the Village School PTA Facebook page, so you can see postings and information that we sent out there as well. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining this call. Thank you, Mr. Talp, for being so supportive of this series of Coffee with Principals. So that's all. And
Thank you.
yeah, once we download the video, I'll send out the link to the video so that folks can see it later.
Absolutely. Thank you, Raj. Thank you to our entire PTA. You are the best. And thank you, of course, to Mr. James for being here. Don't hesitate to take him up on his offer to get in touch if you have anything on your mind. And as always, we thank you. We wish you the most relaxing and restful break. Hopefully you're getting a break from your work as well. And we really hope you make the most out of it and enjoy the season. And we will see you next year.
Great. Happy holidays. Thank you.
Same to you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.